Xi Jinping! Xi Jinping!
Candles, phone lights, blank sheets. A wave of Chinese civil disobedience. Probably the most extraordinary surge of defiance since the Tiananmen Square protests of 1989. Public frustration boiling over in China as harsh COVID rules extend deep into their third year. Rumbling for about 5 months at isolated locations, protests against China's zero COVID policy have escalated since October the 13th. That's when banners against the country's all-powerful leader splashed across a key Beijing overpass. Remove the traitor dictator Xi Jinping, read one. Food, not PCR tests or lockdowns, read another. The chants of the Beijing protesters echoed in mass demonstrations after a fire ripped through the 15th floor of an apartment building in China. 10 people were burnt alive, apparently because emergency crews were too slow to respond because of COVID restrictions.
I think first it's because of the Xi Jinping, the president. We should end his dictatorship. This is why many people died of him. So, but now it's a good news. Is many people getting to realize the president is illegal.
For the rest of the world, it's a journey back to normal life, unmasked and hopefully more routine. For the Chinese, though, it's a life cloistered in stringent lockdowns, even if it's just a handful of cases. The government defends its brute force quarantines, restrictions and digital tracking. Last month, China tilted towards a one-man rule, as Xi Jinping was confirmed the country's leader for a precedent-breaking third term as the head of the ruling Communist Party. The increasing tumult over his government's COVID strategy in particular and censorship on dissent in general could be a political headache for Xi.
It is very different, still very different from 1989, because in 1989 when students are protesting, that there's clear sign that the party leadership is divided. In absolute control, we don't see any sign that some other party leaders are trying to take advantage of this to change Xi. Without the clear signal of party leaders, the divisions, then I would expect this kind of protest might not last very long.
Broader political demands for real democratic change may be too distant to realize in an authoritarian system like China's, but the scale of outpouring seems to be building pressure on Xi's government to at least loosen its draconian COVID regulations. With Ankit Kumar, Bureau Report, India Today. Gaurav Sawant is live with me on this story. He's been looking at it very closely. Gaurav also travelled to Taiwan earlier this year. At a very tumultuous time, at a time when China was actually firing missiles into the Taiwan Strait. Gaurav, looking at these pictures, it's easy to think that this is a mass uprising that could shake the Xi Jinping government. The truth, of course, is that this is a very, very powerful government, a very powerful system, that has a great deal of experience in stamping out protests, no matter how big they are. They've done it through their history. So the question that one needs to ask is, do we know how the Chinese government is viewing these protests? Is it a threat by any stretch of imagination, or are they just waiting for it to blow over?
So, Shiv, if we were to talk about Taiwan for a moment, just across the strait, Taiwan is removing the mask mandate, and this too will cause alarm and anger just across the strait in China. Taiwan removes all mask mandates. Across the world, people are mingling. You're watching the FIFA World Cup where thousands are together. people in China are also viewing this. And suddenly you have a situation in China. The anger actually increased after the Urumqi incident, where 10 people were killed in that devastating fire. When they tried to run out of the building, they couldn't because the doors had been welded shut. So 10 people died, including children. And this is where people across the country, whether it's Shanghai or Beijing or Wuhan or Chengdu, people are protesting. They're saying that we are with the people of Urumqi. Remember, China anyway ill-treats people in the Xinjiang province, treats them as second and third-rate citizens. But now the country is rising. But is this Tiananmen 2.0? Will China use the same tactics? Remember, they brought tanks out in 1989. There was a brutal crackdown. The apprehension, at least at this point of time, is right now the people are very, very peaceful. Look at those images. They're saying down with Xi Jinping, but they are peaceful. And then that iconic picture where you had two university professors standing in front of the police to ensure that their students remain safe. Shiv, as of now, protests are peaceful. Should this escalate, and who are the people who are protesting? Foxconn pictures you saw, no longer peaceful. So factory workers are no longer peaceful. If factory workers and students together come out on the streets, remember, 90,000 people can be kept in those quarantine centers, and many such quarantine centers are coming up across China. So the situation could well become alarming. But as of now, the impression is that Xi Jinping and the brute force, the army and the police command, they would be able to control this.